Hello, my name is Lewis and welcome to Gathering the Magic. Today we're looking at a $70 budget Jetmir Nexus of Revels deck tech. From the upcoming Streets of New Capenna set, this 5/4 cat demon says creatures you control get +1/+0 and vigilance if you control 3 or more creatures. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and trample if you control 6 or more creatures, and creatures you control get +1/+0 and double strike if you control 9 or more creatures. This deck is all about getting the widest board possible. Get Jetmir to give all of your creatures all of those deadly abilities and then plough through your opponents for the win. As always, as we do with these budget brews, we're starting off hot with all of that ramp. First we have Cultivate and Kadama's Reach to both search your library for 2 basic lands, putting one on the field tapped and the other into your hand. There's Farseek to search your library for a plains or mountain, putting it onto the battlefield tapped, and Rampant Growth to again search your library for a basic land, putting it onto the field tapped. We've got Harrow to sack a land and search your library for 2 basic lands, putting them onto the field, and Harvest Season to search your library for X basic land cards, where X is the number of tapped creatures you control, putting those lands onto the field tapped. With hopefully a big wide attacking army, this could ramp you to the max. Moving on to Signet City, we have Arcane to add 1 mana of any colour in your commander's colour identity, and Boros to pay 1 tap and add Boros to your mana pool. We've also added in Gruul and Selesnya Signet to both pay 1, tap and add their colours to your mana pool. There's Commander Sphere to tap to add 1 mana of any colour in your commander's colour identity, and Mindstone to add a colourless, with them both being sacrificial options for that tasty card draw. And finally, we have Sol Ring, because Sol Ring. Before we get onto those creature token creators, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for all things MTG. It's completely free to do, and it helps our channel grow and grow. You can also help support us by becoming a prickly pal today and join our brand new channel membership. Now we're going to delve into all of our creatures that will create us even more creatures. First on up is Rampaging Baloths with Trample that gets you a 4/4 beast creature token whenever you play a land. An Omnath Locus of Rage that gets you a massive 5/5 elemental whenever you play a land, with it also dealing 3 damage to any target whenever it or another elemental dies. There's Adeline Resplendent Cathar that says its power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control, and when you attack, for each opponent create a 1/1 human creature token that's tapped and attacking that player or a planeswalker they control. And Dragon Broodmother that says at the beginning of each upkeep, put a 1/1 dragon creature token with flying and devour 2 into play. We've also got Quartzwood Crusher, the Trampley Dino that says whenever 1 or more creatures with Trample deal combat damage to a player, create an XX Dino with Trample, where X was the amount of damage those creatures did to that player. And Giant Adaphage, that when it deals combat damage to a player, you create a copy of Giant Adaphage. The more creatures we have on the board that will create us more creatures, the quicker we'll be able to get those Jetmir abilities stacked up, and the easier it'll be to get the win. Next is Delina Wild Mage, that when attacks you choose a creature you control and roll a d20. If it's numbers 1 through 14, you can create a tapped and attacking non-legendary copy of that creature, exiling it at the end of combat. And if you roll a 15 through 20, you create one of those tokens and roll again. And Gired Conclave Exile, the ETBs, and gets you a 4/4 Rhino creature token with Trample, and whenever Gired attacks, populate. That token ETBs tapped and attacking. We've thrown in Krenko Tin Street Kingpin that gets a +1/+1 counter on whenever it attacks. Then you create a number of 1/1 goblins equal to Krenko's power. And Huge Eldrazi Desolation Twin that when you cast, you create a copy of Desolation Twin. There's Arasta of the Endless Web that says when an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/2 spider token with reach. And Dragon Master Outcast that on your upkeep, if you have 6 or more lands, create a 5/5 dragon creature token with flying. We want to be creating tokens via everything we do, so if we have a variety of creatures that are creating more creatures on upkeep, combat damage, ETB effects and more, then whatever we do, our army will naturally get bigger. Onto our final 6 creatures, we have Prava of the Steel Legion that gives your tokens +1/+4, and you can pay 3 and a white to create a 1/1 soldier token. And Reese the Redeemed that you can pay and tap to create a 1/1 Elf Warrior creature token. You can also pay more and tap to create a copy of each creature token you control. That could be huge. We've got Myojin of Blooming Dawn that ETBs with an indestructible counter on it. If you cast it from your hand, you can also remove a counter from it to create a 1/1 spirit token for each permanent you control. Again, that could be huge. And Selesnya Eulogist that you can pay 2 in a forest to exile a creature from a graveyard. That's any graveyard, and then populate. There's Vitu-Ghazi Guildmage that you can pay to create a 3/3 Centaur creature token or pay to populate. And Wayfaring Temple, whose power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control, with the added bonus that when it deals combat damage to a player, you populate. We've also added in the legendary Planeswalker Garruk Primal Hunter to create us those 3/3 beasts and hopefully make us a huge worm army. So now we've looked at those creatures that will make us more creatures, let's look at every other way to increase that army. First, we have Finale of Glory to create X 2/2 soldier tokens with vigilance. If X is 10 or more, you also create X 4/4 angel tokens with flying and vigilance. And White Sun Zenith to create X 2/2 cat creature tokens, shuffling this card back into your library. There's Curious Herd to choose target opponent. You create X 3/3 beast creature tokens, where X is the number of artifacts that player controls. And March of the Multitudes to create X 1/1 soldier tokens with lifelink that you can also convoke to cast. Moving to mutations now, first with Artifact to destroy target artifact, creating X 1/1 sapling tokens where X is the artifact's mana value, and Aura to do exactly the same but this time with an enchantment. These two are doubly effective in this deck as you're not only getting some removal but beefing up your board. Next up is Mouth to Feed to create a 3/3 Hippo token, then with that Aftermath option to draw a card for each creature you control with power 3 or greater. And Felidar Retreat to create you a 2/2 Cat Beast creature token whenever you play a land. We've got Increasing Devotion to create 5/1/1 human creature tokens, creating 10 if it was cast from your graveyard, and Rith's Charm to put 3/1/1 sapling tokens into play. Also with some evil land destruction or damage prevention. There's Druid's Deliverance to prevent all combat damage dealt to you this turn, and Rootborn Defences to give your creatures indestructible until end of turn, both with that lovely Populate option. There's Growing Ranks to populate at the beginning of your upkeep, and Full Flowering to populate X times. Finally, we have Tristani's Judgment to exile target creature and populate. And Second Harvest, this says for each token you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. As always, before finishing up with all of the lands, we're looking at the best of the rest in this budget brew. First up is Elemental Bond that says whenever a creature with power 3 or greater ETBs under your control, draw a card. And Garruk's Uprising to give your creatures trample. And when it ETBs, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you draw a card. And whenever a creature with power 4 or greater ETBs under your control, draw a card. We have Harmonise to draw 3 cards, and Camaraderie to gain X life and draw X cards, where X is the number of creatures you control. Also, giving your creatures +1/+1 until end of turn. There's Return of the Wild Speaker to draw cards equal to the greatest power amongst non-human creatures you control, or boost those non-humans by +3/+3 until end of turn. And Shamanic Revelation to draw a card for each creature you control, gaining 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. We've got Rishkar's Expertise to draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control, also being able to cast a spell with mana value 5 or less from your hand for free. For 4 and 2 green, that is value aplenty. And Goblin Anarchomancer that cheapens the cost of red and green spells by 1. For some removal, we have Beast Within to destroy target permanent, giving its controller a 3/3 beast token, and Hour of Reckoning to destroy all non-token creatures, also being able to convoke to cast. A potential one-sided board wipe here, as hopefully we'll have built up a big token army. There's Naya Charm for some damage, recursion or tapping down options, and Timeless Witness for some recursion that we can also eternalise to make a copy. For our final two, we have Imara Tandris to prevent all damage that would be dealt to creature tokens you control, and Unbreakable Formation to give your creatures indestructible until end of turn, also giving your creatures a +1/+1 counter if it was cast during your main phase. Now we're finishing up with all of those tasty lands. As it's a budget brew, we've filled it with 12 forest, 10 plains and 8 mountain, as this deck leans much heavier into those forests. We have Classics in Command Tower to add 1 mana of any of Jetmir's colours, and Exotic Orchard to add 1 mana of a colour that a land an opponent controls could produce. We've got more staples in Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse that could both be cracked to search out those basic lands from your library, putting them onto the field tapped. Lastly, there's Jungle Shrine to add any of those Naya colours, and Crowsand Verge to add colourless, or it can be sacked to get a forest and a plains onto the field tapped. Jetmir is a very cool and really interesting new commander, and I'm happy that Naya is getting a bit more love. This is definitely a deck that can overwhelm your opponents out of nowhere, and a card I cannot wait to pack. There we have it, that was the $70 Jetmir budget deck tech. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for all things MTG. Check out our link tree in the description below for all of our social media and affiliate links. For now though, I'm all tapped out, so I'll see you in the next video.